Well, I finally learned how to pronounce the Penn State guard's name, Vega Iwane, and that's who I want them to take. And I want them to trade up and get him. I want them to use some of those extra picks. That's how good I think he's going to be, Ray. But you feel differently. Tell us who you have at pick number 21 in your latest and final, right, mock draft.
Final, yeah. I went with Washington receiver Denzel Boston. I did not have them trading up. I acknowledge that is definitely a possibility. They also brought Mekhi Lemon in here, one of the other top receivers in this draft. He's actually rated a little bit higher than Denzel Boston is. So, if you look at it, and I noted this today in my story, Joe, since Omar Khan took over, all three of their first-round picks have been into Pittsburgh before the draft on a top 30 visit. So there's a track record there with Omar, and they did that a lot with Kevin Colbert as well. So you can sort of break it down. They brought Lemon and Boston in. They brought the Penn State guard in. They brought Fano in from Utah. They brought the Toledo safety in, and they also brought in San Diego State corner Chris Johnson. So 6 first-round targets were brought in. I think – I don't want to say I'm safe in assuming that it's going to be one of those 6, but I think it's a pretty good indication it's likely going to be one of those 6 players.
Say the names again, Ray. Those 6 players they brought in. Just the last names if you want to shorten it.
Lemon, Boston. How did you pronounce the Penn State guard?
Iwane? Yeah.
Iwane, Fano, McNeil Warren, and then Chris Johnson from San Diego State.
Interesting. And do you think this is what you think they will do? Do you think it's what they should do? Do you like Boston?
Yeah, I think you hire an offensive-minded coach. Art Rooney acknowledged when they made this hire that the offense has been lacking the last couple of seasons. He wants it to get better. And what better way to do that than to give your current quarterback and your future franchise quarterback, if you can acquire that guy, give them all the weapons they need to be successful. You have Metcalf and Pittman, and that's really all you have at this point. I think Roman Wilson is a big unknown. I also have them selecting another receiver on day 2 of the draft. I think they need to replenish that room. They need weapons, and they need to score. That's why Boston was so intriguing to me. 20 touchdowns the last 2 seasons, great red zone target, compared to a guy like Puka Nacua, guy who isn't maybe fast, but he knows how to get open, knows how to make combat catches. I think those guys are always needed in the red zone.
I heard you on with the PM guys talking about the Toledo safety, McNeil Warren. And they're not, or at least Pony, I know, wasn't a big fan of it. The Steelers, went with Edmonds a few years back, Terrell Edmonds. That didn't turn out well. But this guy seems like a different kind of player. I actually wouldn't mind that pick to have a big, rangy hitter, playmaker running around back there. What would you think of that idea?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. He is a big safety, 6'3". A lot of forced fumbles on his resume. I think he had 12 or 14 turnovers during his career at Toledo. I think 8 of those were forced fumbles. Just a really good player in run support. Obviously, has some interception on his resume as well. So I think that would be a good pick as well. There are 3 safeties. There's Ohio State's Caleb Downs. There's Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, and then McNeil Warren. I think those other 2 likely will be gone by 21, but I think there's a good chance that McNeil Warren could be there when they pick.
Ray, you have the Steelers doing something in the 4th round that I'm not very happy about. Picking Carson Beck, number 121 overall. Why?
Austin, I would have been your best friend if I picked Aller there, wouldn't I?
Yes, you would have.
No, listen, I think they're similar types of quarterbacks. They went that AFC North style quarterback, and both those guys are big. Beck is 6'4", Aller is 6'5". Beck has big hands, size 10 hands. Can play in wet weather, which is something that both Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy have talked about. So they definitely have a type of a quarterback. As somebody revs up their engine here, I'm in the parking lot apologize for the background noise here. But, yeah, they definitely have a type of quarterback. All those guys that they brought to Pittsburgh are big guys who can play in the elements.
Tell us again the quarterbacks who made visits, the quarterbacks they seem most interested in.
It was Aller, Beck, Cole Payton, and then the kid from Arkansas. Help me out with his name.
Aylin Green.
Who is a tremendous athlete. I mean, his 40 time, he is an intriguing prospect. You see highlights, of him, breaking the pocket and running. It's very impressive. So I don't know if he would be in play for the Steelers, but bigger guys with mobility that McCarthy talked about. Those are the types of guys the Steelers want at quarterback.
So if Aaron Rodgers comes, they say they're gonna draft a quarterback. McCarthy said at the right time. If Aaron Rodgers comes back, tell me the rationale behind taking, especially another Big Ten project type quarterback in Drew Aller. You have your starter. You have a veteran backup in Rudolph. How many projects can you take on, especially if we're to believe what they say about Will Howard, which is we love him to death?
Yeah, well, listen, if it's Aller, you're just betting on the traits. Prototypical size, great arm, just never really put it together from a production standpoint.
For sure, Ray. But my question is, then you have two guys like that. How can you even give yourself a fair chance to develop one via reps and attention and everything else when you have two?
Yeah, I just think you're giving yourself options. And I think you're just betting on taking a quarterback each year. They would likely take another quarterback next year when there's another really, really good class. And listen, maybe one of these guys turns into your long-term backup. Maybe one of these guys turns into your starter. I will point out, I think Carson Beck is a little bit different from Aller. If you remember what Omar said, I think it was at the owners' meetings, he just talked about how winning was very important to him. You got to win. And Carson Beck did a really nice job with Miami last year, led them to the national title game. I know the Steelers are always focused on that. It's not all about wins and losses. You gotta have certain traits as well. But that's one of the reasons I picked Beck instead of Aller, just because the big games didn't seem to phase him. Like Will Howard last year won the national championship. I think that's going to be important for Omar and Mike, and that's why, quite honestly, I picked him instead of Aller.
Ray, what do you think about wide receiver? I know you have Boston in the first round. Is this a draft where the Steelers can afford to wait on a receiver in the first round and pick one, maybe more so in the third?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if I didn't pick Boston for them, I would have them pick Jeremy Bernard in the second round. I did that in one of my previous mocks. I think he's a really good player, can play in the slot. Like if you think you have enough outside with Pittman and Metcalf and you don't want another big receiver, a guy like Bernard would be perfect in the second round. I also had them taking in this mock draft that was published today, Antonio Williams from Clemson, 5'11", another slot receiver, good after the catch guy. So I think, if you wait, if you don't take one of the quote-unquote number one receivers in this draft, you can get a slot receiver second round, early third round. Probably don't want to wait until late third round, but I think you can get a really good slot receiver on day two of the draft.
So you have them on day two taking a guard, I guess tackle guard, this Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. How do you view him?
Listen, he's a guy who was not highly recruited coming out of high school, went to Middle Tennessee State for 2 years, then he transferred to Georgia Tech. He was first team All-ACC the year after he transferred. I mean, so this guy was obviously under-recruited, great athlete. He was the number one tester at the Combine among the guards. You watch film of him. He's just a really, really good player in space. You don't have to worry about him, being clumsy on the second level or anything like that. Just I think he's a guy who also fits the West Coast style offense. They're going to run, Mike's going to run the zone blocking scheme. And I think he would be very adept at, picking that up and doing really well with that.